I, 21M, have been deployed for the past 10 months and I will be getting home in 1 week. My wife and I's plan was for her to be the only one to know what date I was coming back, so that when I get leave we can go back and surprise all of our family and friends. My wife, 21F, visited home a couple weeks ago for a family event, and while she was there she spent a day with my mom and 2 younger sister, HSH. My mother is very pushy and hates surprises. So much so that me surprising her by coming home would make her mad at me. My wife and I knew we would eventually have to tell her because of this, but we're waiting until the last minute because she would have told my sisters if she knew my date. Well, while my wife was there, my mom pushed and pushed, telling her that she wouldn't speak to her, let the girls go places, and she had to know so she could take days off work. My wife gave her a week range of my leave, a couple weeks after I get back, so that she could request off. Well, my mom texted me today telling me that she would be here for the welcome home when our plane lands. I asked if she cleared this with my wife, seeing as she apparently planned to stay with us in our 1-bedroom apartment, and she said no. I asked if the girls knew and were coming, and she said no. My mom has done a few things that presses between my wife and I, so I lost it on her. Told her I wouldn't be giving her the date that I fly in, that if I wanted her there I would want my sisters there as well. I stopped there until she started complaining that she was a single mom who raised me on her own, and that I should want to see her first. That's when I told her I didn't want her in my house at all when I first get home. I am a married, grown man now, I don't need my mom. I want to see and spend time with my wife first and foremost. She pressed further saying I've been here for you since before you were born, she's been here for 4 years. Eventually trash talking my wife, saying she doesn't even have a real job and doesn't contribute. My wife is a nanny while she is in school, and she gets paid well, so she absolutely does contribute more than enough. This is where I may be the asshole. I told my mom that I was tired of her badgering, that I wanted to come home to my wife and be alone in our home with our pets. My wife and I would not want to host her, and we wanted the house to ourselves so that we can have sex wherever and whenever we please because we haven't seen each other in so long. My mom cried. She's sending me long paragraph texts every few hours about how she doesn't know where her caring son went, about how I need to let my wife go because I use her for her body, about how all I care about is my own pleasure, and I have no care for my family at all. So Reddit, Ida? I haven't responded to the messages my mother is sending, but if I get ideas from the possible comments, I might. Comments, commenter, good job finally standing up to her. Stop giving her info and stop talking to her. Mom, until you learn to act like an adult and stop trash talking my wife to me, I will not be communicating with you. I am very disappointed in you and how incredibly selfish and immature you are acting. Don't make your wife deal with this jerk. I haven't given her info. She told me she was coming for my plane to land and she didn't even know when that date was. The only info she got was from my wife, and was quite literally worded as he will likely have leave within these few weeks, but those weeks could change. Could she find you at the airport? She won't be able to even if she wanted to. The runway we land on is on base. To a different commenter, she literally cannot get onto base without me or my wife with her, or my permission for a visitor's pass. I won't be giving that permission, so she can try everything she wants. She's not getting in. Commenter, you need to tell your CO and XO about your mom. Do not put it past her to try contacting your unit to get information on where you are, when you are, and how you are coming home. As embarrassing as it is, you've got to protect yourself here and probably go low to no contact with your mom for a while. She did this in basic training. Called the base I was at so many times that they had to pull me from intake to call her and tell her to leave people alone. After that, I knew she didn't need information. She doesn't even fully know my MOS. Commenter, part of a longer comment, she's an example of a manipulative parent. Here's a paragraph from article about manipulative parents, and their signs. Parents using emotional blackmail will often threaten to withdraw their love or approval if the child does not comply with their wishes. This can manifest as guilt-tripping the child, making them feel responsible for the parent's happiness, or expressing extreme disappointment when the child does not meet their expectations. That paragraph fits what she's been doing to a T. What confuses me is none of my mom's behavior like this started until we got married. Before, when she was my GF, she always wanted her around, joked about trading me and my wife, invited her everywhere my family went. Now it bothers her when we spend time together and she isn't invited when she thinks she should/can be. Commenter, she's jealous of your wife. She wants to be close to you, platonically, of course. I've heard cases like these. She obviously cannot grasp the idea of you becoming an adult. You need to tell her no, you're not her little boy anymore. I have. It didn't work much, so I just started going LC. Mostly keeping it about my sisters, if we will visit, and of course this because I wasn't willing to just let her think she could step in on me and my wife. Especially without consulting my wife first, considering she is the only one home taking care of our place right now. Commenter, sounds like a tough situation, man. I had something similar with my in-laws once. It's not easy to navigate family dynamics sometimes. Do you think she'd respond better if your wife talked to her instead? No, I think she would go after her more honestly. After her telling my wife she wouldn't speak to her or let my sisters spend time with us if my wife didn't tell her when I'd visit home, I think having my wife tell her she isn't welcome would go just the same if not worse. Not only that, but my wife is a people pleaser. She's extremely sweet and would do anything to accommodate anyone, even if it isn't what she wants. She's getting better about having a stronger spine as she calls it, but I don't want to put her into a position that would make her uncomfortable. If my mom went to my wife herself, I would want my wife to stand up for herself, but I don't want to ask her to do that for me. Commenter: OMG, you need to go either NC or very LC with your mom. JFC, wow, that's just, wow. Been there. Mom was the last thing I thought about when I got back from deployment. I mean, God forbid you get stationed overseas. What will she do then, fucking move in? You need to nip that in the bud now. I already don't contact her much outside of for my sisters and neither does my wife. Our plan when my contact ends is to move to a base even farther from home, where we would have to fly for visits. That would take our amount of visits down a lot because we travel with our pets, but they're both large dogs and we don't want to put them under a plane, and plane tickets on top of pet boarding is expensive. If people would want to see us, they would have to come to us. Oh, and my mom refuses to get on a plane. Smile commenter: NTA. Your mom is way too involved in your life. Has she always had such an unhealthy attachment to you? After reading the comments and thinking back on how things have been when I was a kid to now, it seems that when our dad passed away I became her stand-in. To a different commenter, she practically expected me to be a father figure to my sisters starting at 8. Even now, I have my mom's calls blocked because when my sisters are in trouble, she calls me and tells me to talk to them instead of dealing with it herself. Update: a few people asked to stay updated, so here is the first one. Spoiler alert, it's not necessarily a fun one. Unfortunately, because of another wife sharing our flight date all over Facebook, our return has been pushed back an entire month. I called my wife to let her know, and we are both devastated. I only had enough time for one phone call, so I asked my wife to let family and friends know, including my mother. Yes, I know many people might not be happy about that, but again, she didn't receive a date. My wife's text to her was just that I would not be returning until a month later, or more. My mother's reaction to that news has truly solidified what many comments were telling me. I was raised by a narcissist. Her text back to my wife was, "Oh, that's great. That is actually is much better timing for me." My wife's response to my mother was, "Do not say that to my name. He is devastated that he will be gone longer, and he has been talking about wanting to be home ASAP since just a few months in. I wish you wouldn't have even said it to me, as I'm devastated by his return being delayed as well. It is extremely selfish for you to be glad he is away from home for even longer simply because it works better for you. I have never in my life heard of a mother being glad that her child will be overseas longer than what was planned." After that, she blocked my mom. Her shiny spine is really developing. I have not reached out to my mother, and I will not be doing so. I won't block her, as with my sisters being minors, I would like for one of us, my wife or I, to have at least some line of communication in case of some family emergency. However, I will not be texting or calling, and any of her texts or calls will not be answered unless I consider them an emergency. There were a few questions and deeper explanations from my original post, so I figured I would go into them deeper here. My father passed away when I was 6. Ever since then, my mom has sort of relied on me when it came to raising my sisters. Even with them being high school aged, it continued. When I went into the military, my mom got upset, saying things at home would be just terrible with me gone, that she didn't know how she would handle my sisters on her own, and that life would seem more pointless without her son in it every single day. When my wife and I got married and moved to my first duty station, she begged to trade my sisters off, sending one of them to stay with us every few weeks, where they would stay in our living room. She even told us we would need to purchase a hide-a-bed couch for it to work out. Obviously, that had never happened as I told her my sisters were my sisters, and her kids. It was not my responsibility to raise them. My mom and I were very close when I was growing up. I considered her one of my best friends, and someone I could always go to. That changed when I got married. I also realized that some of the things she did were not healthy or good parenting moments. My mom started purchasing condoms for me when I was only 12. She was very open about sex with me, and was not one to shy away from it. She was completely fine with me having sex at such a young age, which did lead me to being a bit of a man whore. Before my wife, I constantly snuck girls in, snuck out to hang out with girls, and whatever else. My wife was the first girl that I brought to my house during the day, introduced to my family, invited her for dinner. My wife was also very strict with her views on sex when we started dating. We were friends before, so she knew I was a bit of a player. Where I viewed sex as something fun, she viewed it as something that should only be between two people who truly love each other. She was not down for it until a few months into us dating, and I was willing to wait for her. We still snuck around, but when she snuck me in, we quite literally played Mario Kart, watched movies, and hung out all night. When this part of me changed, it changed something about my mom for some reason. She did used to ask about girls I was sleeping with when I was in high school, but when she asked about my wife when we started dating, and I told her we weren't doing anything like that, she got frustrated about me lying. She stopped buying me condoms, which I was fine with because I didn't need them in the beginning, and when I did, I was 18 and completely fine buying them myself. Before my wife and I ever did have sex, she would come in my room and scream about how she didn't want me having sex under her roof. I thought that she just realized that encouraging a minor to have sex wasn't okay. My mom also liked my wife when she was just my girlfriend. This always confused me until I read people's comments. Her going from loving her, inviting her to everything, asking where she was when she wasn't with me, to trash talking her didn't make sense to me until people in the comments of my last post clarified that it was the fact that she was my wife. Her being permanent is what my mother doesn't like. And as far as cock blocking, my mom has happily done that since we've been married. She screeched and hit her face when I kissed my wife at our wedding. She begged us to sleep on a pallet in her living room on our wedding night. We didn't. She tried calling 3 times a day when we first moved, once around the time I usually got off work, once either during or after dinner, and once at night. Sometimes while my wife were mid-tango, sometimes when we were already asleep. It was very rare that I actually answered these calls, and when she realized her calls were muted, they faded away. She FaceTimed seemingly once an hour on our first wedding anniversary. Again, I didn't answer. Her wanting us to host her when I first got back was not her being clueless. She knew what she was trying to do. Now that I have a new return date, my mother will not even know the possible weeks I might have leave. She won't need to. I do not plan on seeing her outside of maybe going out to eat with her, my wife, and the rest of my family. My wife will be organizing it, and will be able to ask my sisters about days my mother is off work. That's all I have as far as an update right now. I may post more before returning just based on how things go. I can imagine I will have plenty of an update when I do actually return. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Wife got mean after having our baby and stopped working. She claims she cheated our whole marriage and says our daughter isn't mine. Now her stepsister moved in and started helping out. I, 35M, and my wife, 35F, have been married for 6 years. Some background: 7 months ago my wife gave birth to our daughter. I'll call her Sadie. Ever since my wife gave birth she has been getting increasingly rude and refuses to do any work around the house and says she's still healing from giving birth, even though she always goes out with her friends. 3 months ago my wife's stepsister Hannah, 25F, called my wife and asked her if she could temporarily move in with us. She lived in a crappy apartment building and tenants recently had to leave due to the unsafe conditions. Hannah didn't have enough to get another place right away, hence scare asking. My wife seemed very eager to let Hannah move in despite always claiming they never get along. They came to the agreement that she would help with Sadie in exchange for staying with us rent-free so she could save up for a deposit on a proper apartment. Everything was fine at first. Hannah has ADHD and took a week to adjust to living with us. During that week she did all the chores my wife has been neglecting without us asking her to. I tried to tell her she didn't have to do all of them, but my wife waved me off and said Hannah's ADHD makes her want to do it. Hannah backed her up. After she cleaned something my wife would thank Hannah a lot. I thanked her as well, but my wife did it constantly, which seemed strange to me. My wife dismissed my questions and said it was normal to do with people with ADHD. Since then my wife has pushed all childcare and any household chores I don't do onto Hannah. She has also been increasingly rude to Hannah and yelling at her if she makes a mistake on the first try of doing something. I tried to intervene when I was at home, but KY wife would accuse me of wanting to let Hannah lay around the house being lazy because she was she, and I got into a huge fight about her using that word to describe Hannah and didn't speak for a few days. My breaking point came when I found out my wife had been making Hannah pay her rent and buy baby supplies. I pay all the bills and the money Hannah had been giving my wife was not going towards the house. My wife was using it to go out with her friends. My wife also made Hannah pay for food. I usually give my wife the money for food and she bought snacks for herself with Hannah's contribution. I had another fight with my wife where she said Hannah was lazy and if she didn't like her rules then Hannah could sleep on the street and get out of her house. That's when I told my wife it's my house, as she doesn't pay any bills and at this point doesn't do anything but be as lazy as she accuses Hannah of being. I would rather live with Hannah. My wife got quiet and has been refusing to talk to me or Hannah for the past few days, and I'm starting to think I crossed a line. Ada? Edit to add, I have no romantic/sexual feelings for Hannah. Even if I did, Hannah is a lesbian. And even if she weren't, I would not take advantage of her by making a move on her while she's dependent on me for housing. Please stop with the comments suggesting I marry Hannah. Edit 2, she was cleared for PPD a few months ago, but due to comments I will discuss having her screened again. Comments, 13x_G, to your wife is stealing from you and Hannah. It shows a dishonest character and people don't tend to be dishonest in only one aspect of their life. I feel like if you start poking around you're going to find out a lot of surprises about your wife. Mighty Sapphire, do you understand what a huge red flag it is that your wife lied to you and Hannah when she took Hannah's money and kept it for herself? Like huge. No wonder they never got along. That's because your wife is a twat. Apparently she is totally comfortable lying to your face. And Hannah's. And she has no problem pretending not to be married. You should grant her that wish. Shay 2202, your wife is neither a Sahu nor a Sam. She isn't even staying at home as she's always off out with her friends. It's absolutely brilliant that Hannah is so happy to look after Sadie and do the housework, and you need to tell your wife how pleased you are with this new arrangement, as you now have a live-in nanny, housekeeper, and your wife, who clearly wasn't content with her stay-at-home lifestyle, can now go out and get a full-time job to pay Hannah for her work and have extra money for herself. I'm sure she'll be absolutely thrilled with the suggestion. Just be sure to thank her for making it all possible by sitting on her backside while Hannah took over all of her responsibilities to free her time up so that she can contribute financially to the household. Extreme Juju, your wife is an abusive creep. She is also projecting her own shortcomings and insecurities onto Hannah. Also, are you sure Hannah has ADHD and not OCD? Most of us with ADHD have a hard time being organized and cleaning. Like, I can clean as in over the top, germaphobe clean the entire house, but I am horribly disorganized, distracted, and will let things get cluttered, but at least the house is deep cleaned. I don't know, perhaps others with ADHD can chime in, maybe they are driven to clean because of it. Regardless, your wife is using Hannah. She is cruel, and I don't think this is solely postpartum depression. It feels like something else is going on. I hope you can get it all sorted out. Update, apologies for waiting so long to update. I was attempting to resolve the issue with my wife and Hannah. The talk I had with my wife was not productive. I mentioned having her checked again for PPD and she refused. She also refused to see a marriage counselor with me. I pressed the issue of her being checked for PPD and told her if she didn't then I would be moving forward, assuming her attitude was completely her own doing and there was no underlying cause, and if I did that our marriage wouldn't survive. Maybe it was the wrong way to go about it, but I saw no other way to convince her, and she still refused. I honestly do not believe she has PPD, and this is just her based on her actions following the talk. After our conversation she proceeded to purposefully cause messes and yelled at Hannah more often. I didn't sit back this time however, and I defended Hannah. After a week of this I told my wife to move out. She had become an unrecognizable terror. She went to stay with a friend and has been refusing to see Sadie to punish me. She also has been messaging me telling me when Sadie was old enough she would ensure our daughter knew about the way I treated her. Hannah feels as if she shouldn't be welcome without her sister, but I assured her that wasn't the case. Also, to those who said my wife was cheating on me, you were unfortunately correct. A few days ago I told my wife I wanted a divorce and she completely blew up on me before informing me that she would be going for full custody because she's been cheating on me for the entire time we've been together and she's positive Sadie isn't mine. I cannot accurately describe what I'm feeling or what's going to happen in the future, but I'm terrified she's going to take my daughter away from me. I don't care if she isn't biologically mine, Sadie is my daughter and I love her. I'm looking for a lawyer and will hopefully get some advice on how to keep my daughter. I'm on her birth certificate, so I'm hoping that means legally she's mine regardless of paternity. I'm sorry if this was a bit all over the place. I'm still dealing with the fallout of everything, but thought I would update you all. To end this on a better note, if that matters to you all, Hannah has agreed to continue living here to help look after Sadie regardless of her future ability to rent an apartment. Currently we are looking into some kind of employment agreement where she'll basically be a live-in nanny for Sadie. This was Hannah's idea when I brought up compensating her for the extra work she's done so far. I don't think I'll update again, so this is it as far as I'm aware.